everyone, it's Sevy. As you might have seen from the past 2 weeks, I sped ran Rinascita 2.x to catch up for 3.0 and Lahairoi. So that was 2.0 all the way to 2.8. I played most of it in the span of 3 weeks. The weeks leading up to Christmas when 3.0 would release. And after I did each main quest playthrough, I would kind of talk a little bit about my thoughts fresh after the quest, but it's been a couple weeks now since I finished all that, and now those thoughts have been stewing, and now I have a bit more concrete, both positive and negative feedback that I want to talk about in this video. I have had these thoughts like spilling out over the days, over little bits and pieces, sometimes in little tweets, sometimes I talk about them with friends, but I finally put those thoughts to paper or those thoughts to Google Docs, which I have in front of me, so that I can talk about them a bit more comprehensively. Now you can find my playthrough highlights on this channel for every version except 2.8, and the 2.8 I decided to put on the Clips and VODs channel instead because it wasn't as essential to the overarching Rinascita plotline, and then that VOD channel has my 2.x uncut VODs, except for 2.7 because what I have on this channel is practically all of it anyway. But yeah, you can find that on my other channel or on this channel. So let's just get into it. Now, I want to start with Rinascita as a setting. And this is honestly where it was kind of mind-blowing, and it's all singing praises mostly for this part because Rinascita is visually stunning. It definitely was a step up from Huanglong. A lot of Huanglong was like desolate wasteland, which kind of was appropriate for the lore of the area. But you enter Rinascita and it's like, it's teeming with life. It's so vibrant. It's so wonderful. Like, it's so lively. So visually it was there. Music was top-notch. There are some really great moments when you're just exploring and the music kind of just hits, not just in the story moments, but even just in the exploration moments. And the overall look and the design of the region and also the echoes was really cool. The echoes, they got some more whimsical ones. We got some dramatic looking ones with sabers and capes, and I thought that was fun. And there were lots of cool, wonderful details that did bring it to life. And I kind of talked about that in my previous What I Really Think About Wuthering Waves video, because honestly, it's those details that matter. Now, I understand that Rinascita is based off Italy, where Ragusa is Venice and Septimont is Rome, and there's lots of other references to places, plus historical references, religious iconography, and stuff built into the culture here, which was really fun to pinpoint. If you're a history buff, then you probably spotted a lot here and there. One thing that I do want to point out and highlight is the Order. The Order was obviously the primary religious organization there, and they take on an antagonistic role at the start. So they're basically there to maintain the facade of the Sentinel being a hippocampus or being from the sea, instead of, as it turns out, being originally a winged sky horse. And then the Order also does this thing where they're pretty punishing towards wrongdoers. Like, sometimes it's the vague threat of, you won't have salvation, but they also just banish people, which is kind of crazy, and then they say it's the will of the Sentinel. And honestly, I liked that the Order had a pretty big role throughout the story. In the middle of it, they kind of were relegated to the background, but at the start they were very present, and then they came back to help the protagonists in the final battle. And honestly, I do wish I'd seen more of them throughout the middle of the overarching plot, the overarching quest, alongside more development for Phoebe in the main quest. It might be weird of me to think that since most of the middle of 2.x was in Septimont and the Order is based in Ragusa, but I'm gonna be honest, it kind of felt like the switch was suddenly flipped as soon as Fenrico was dealt with. Like, it makes sense, right? Because Fenrico was like the head of the Order, he was obviously the most important part of it, and then when he was let go by the Trinodian, then that kind of changes the tune of the entire thing. But I think the Order could have offered more complexity if they'd also had more involvement between we're the cult-like guys at the start and the we're here with the power of Jesus, I mean the Blessed Maiden, at the end. I honestly didn't really plan on talking about the Order much, but it was part of my train of thought in discussing Rinascita with its elements and its setting. The Order just kind of came to the forefront, and as someone who was raised religiously and then decided to leave that behind, I'm kind of a stickler for anything that can depict a religious organization with relative complexity. So it's interesting that Septimont, which is supposed to be Rome, is set pre-Catholicism, and then the Order is kind of like the Catholicism representative, or like organized religion representative, and it made Septimont feel significantly older and more ancient, while Ragunna felt more modern. And Septimont, at first, I'm gonna be completely honest, logically, it was a bit of a shocker for me, because Wuwa is thematically more sci-fi than fantasy, set in a post-apocalyptic future. So to be thrown into Septimont, which is modeled after ancient Rome, but then still coexist with advanced technology, it felt a bit anachronistic. But you know what? That's alright. I ran with it. There's city-states separated by large bodies of water, so Septimont is probably relatively isolated and wanted to stick to long cultural traditions. And that being said, it was a fun exploration overall of mythological and literary references. Let's move on to the plot. Like the meat and potatoes of it, which most of you are probably here to actually hear about, the actual story itself, or rather my thoughts on it. Now, I'm not going to try and summarize everything because that would take forever, but I will tell you what I liked and didn't like, what I thought were strong points, weaker points, and points for improvement, and this pattern that I saw emerging that I wasn't really a fan of. Let's start from the beginning, 2.0. I'm going to be completely transparent. In the first few acts, I felt like I didn't entirely know what was going on. Like, I understood who were the protagonists, who were the antagonists, the tensions between the houses, the Montellis having conflicts with the Order, the Carnival coming out, and that there was a cover-up about the truth of the Sentinel and the Blessed Maiden. There was also the fact that Cristoforo was being a huge bitch, but like a bad bitch. Like that guy was serving the entire time. He made a fabulous villain. But I think that since in the first two acts we were kind of jumping from place to place, event to event, person to person, or rather side character to side character, it felt like I was being given a lot of information, but the cohesion wasn't super strong. It was like laying down the foundation of the story, but in doing so, I was only being given like the first row of a jigsaw puzzle, and then it didn't really look like anything yet, because I didn't know like what the shape of the entire picture would be yet. And honestly, that could just be a me problem, that could be skill issue. But that being said, the start of Rinascita from 2.0 to 2.2 were the parts of the main quest that felt the most like main quests to me. Because sometime after that, each act ended up almost laser focused on singular characters at a time. The banner characters. Now 2.0 and 2.2 did a fabulous job of juggling an ensemble of characters. So in 2.0, we come into it with Zani, Carlotta, Phoebe, Brant, Rocia. And despite no Cantarella yet, we got a lot of talk and foreshadowing about the Physalia family. And it felt like we were going through a main quest plot while these characters were helping us get from point A to point B, while getting to know them a little bit at a time. During this time, we don't get sucked too deeply into any one character's personal traumas or histories or backgrounds, and those could be explored in their companion quests if I so chose, but because I was binging the main quest, I didn't choose to do so at the time. I personally would be interested in Carlotta, Brant, and Phoebe because I really like the characters, or rather I think there's more behind them that I want to find out about. I'm curious, but I'm glad that the main quest didn't become all about them. Which, spoiler, I can't say the same for the tail end of the 2.x quests. 2.2 still did an okay job of using Cantarella alongside Cartithia, and even had an introduction to Chacona at the start as well. And I would have liked it if some of the 2.0 characters had popped up more in 2.2, but I thought, well, they're probably trying to expand the cast further, so it's okay if we don't really see them for a while. We're just trying to get everyone in the picture for now. But having finished everything now, I really wish some 2.0 characters had made more appearances. Anyway, 2.2 did start leaning into companion quest vibe territory for me with regards to Cartithia, but I kind of rationalized it as, well, this is what 2.0 is leading up to anyway. I mean, Blessed Maiden, Cartithia, she shows up at the end. I'm sure that that's like being an intro or transition into the next act, and obviously the next major act is going to be all about her. And Cartithia is basically Jesus, and will probably end up as the central character of the entire Rinascita arc anyway, so I gave it a pass. But yeah, everything past that point just started going into that certain direction that I wasn't too hot about, and I'm sure you've heard that opinion from other players too. Now, before I get into 2.4, I'd just like to say that I really liked the 2.3 quest with Chacona. It's technically not a main quest, so I'm not going to lump it into the same category of quests and make it bear the same weight of my criticisms, but I really liked what Chacona stood for in that quest. Because when it comes to revealing truths and people rebelling against the status quo, it's easy to forget the role that artists have here. Media censorship is one of the big signs of an authoritarian regime, and that doesn't just mean news and journalism. that also means writers, artists, and musicians too. Art is expression, and that gives people power and voices. So I saw Chakona as a representation of that, and I was glad that Wuwa wrote that in. Moving on to 2.4, Wuthering Waves decided to remove companion quests around that time, and it showed. Because starting from here, every main quest practically revolved around one main playable character. Again, that was the banner character. I'm not going to come out here and say that the quests were done terribly. You can watch my reactions to them and you will clearly see my enjoyment. And even until now, I think that that was like some of the funnest, like best paced storytelling in a gacha game that I've felt in a while. And I won't deny that each quest was gorgeous cinematically. They had banger lines. The pacing was great. Every moment felt like it was running towards something. It felt like there were stakes. And I wanted to see how each act ended because it felt important. Sometimes it felt monumental even. And at first, Lupa's presence in 2.4 was pretty refreshing because she's a very upbeat character. She's a sharp contrast to sly Carlotta, initially timid Cartathea still finding her courage, and then there's seductive Cantarella. 2.4 was also led by Cartathea. Like, you know, she was also kind of running the show behind the scenes, so to be fair, it wasn't all Lupa-centric. And the reveals about Mia and the Trinodian and the appearance of Augusta and Yuno, for the first time, kind of softened up the companion quest energy of it all. The drama was great. When they were there in the Colosseum, Lupa was trying to reveal the thing about the Silvas. Like, I was sitting there, I was like, I wish I had popcorn, but chips will have to do for now, because I was like, oh my god, it was so good. It was so fun. That's just a testament to how much I enjoyed that quest, despite seeing that, oh, it's going into a certain direction. But then, after that, Lupa kind of disappears until 2.7. She doesn't even show up in 2.6, which is kind of disappointing because we spent the entirety of 2.6 in Septimont, but we'll come back to that. Now, 2.5. That was very much a Frolova quest. I already discussed my feelings about 2.5 in that video dedicated to it, and mostly positive, to be honest. Mostly positive, even though this one was glaringly companion quest energy. But here's the thing. It felt a bit deserved because we've known Frolova since before Rinascita. And that being said, maybe it's time to learn more about her and explore her past. And what made it even more interesting is that Rover already knows how she feels about Frolova. Frolova isn't a stranger to her. Rover hates her guts. So this didn't have the rosy, gentle approach that we end up seeing in the most recent quests. 2.5 really switched it up, and for the better. So having had that prior history with Frolova, it didn't make 2.5 feel forced or feel out of the blue. Like, the time we spent with her, it actually felt compelling. Oh, I do want to learn about this character because I've been curious about her for a long time now. It's about time we got some new info about her. So that's kind of a big reason why 2.5, even if it felt like a companion quest in a lot of regards, I didn't mind it as much. Now 2.6 is where it starts to get a little wobbly and where I started getting a little more specific about what exactly about the companion quest energy wasn't doing it for me. And it was during this time that I realized that my problem isn't actually the companion quest energy. It's when the quest feels too intimate without the intimacy being earned. So let me explain. I think we can all agree that 2.6 Part 1 main quest was for Augusta and then Part 2 was for Yuno. Despite the relative slowness of Murmurstown, I liked Augusta's half. I really did. Because it felt like we were exploring her history, getting to know her as a character, plus her strengths, weaknesses, what she had to overcome, etc. And it focused on her, not her relationship with Rover. Rover helped Augusta defeat the big bad at the end of the act, but it's not like she was suddenly Augusta's trusted #1 confidant in the world. Yuno's half, in contrast, had to use Rover as her anchor to recover her existence. Rover was literally her anchor. It was a lot about how the two of them were connected enough to help manifest Yuno back into the world. So it was a lot of spotlighting soft, intimate, pretty flirty moments between the two. Plus, of course, hand-holding. Now you can chalk it up to that just being Yuno's personality, but I feel like the most interesting part about Yuno's act anyway was when she was giving prophecies to those individuals and seeing how they ended up encountering those destinies, along with the frustration that Yuno felt at it all. So I actually did like Yuno's conflicts, internal conflicts as a character, but I just felt like the quest kind of pushed like the whole Yuno-Rover dynamic a little too hard. There was actually a lot of substance to Yuno's history and her character, but then the fan service just ended up overshadowing foreshadowing it a lot of times. So personally, if I were to choose someone to be Yuno's anchor, I'd think of someone based on how well they know her. And the person that comes to mind is Augusta, not Rover. Like, have you seen Augusta and Yuno's dynamic? I love it. They know each other so well. They trust each other so well. They have each other's back all the time. And there was even that scene, I watched them banter as they were like sitting on the deck looking out at the sunset. I watched it and I was like, oh my god, these two are they're very close. So, you know, I just think that if we were going to go with organic relationships, I feel like Augusta should have had like a larger role in re-manifesting Yuno back into the world. But because of main character things and because Rover is Rover, Rover has to be the anchor, exception to the rules of the world. Of course, Rover is the one who remembers, yada yada, and all that happened. My main point here is that Yuno's relationship with Rover didn't feel organic, not like it did with Frolova or even Cardathea, which grew over a few versions. We didn't have much interactions with Yuno in 2.4 when she was first introduced, and then it's like all of a sudden in 2.6 we're her anchor. And if we had instead spent a substantial amount of time with Yuno in 2.4 and even more so in 2.6, then our development leading up to her half would have felt more earned and more believable. But in my opinion, that wasn't the case. So let's move on to 2.7. Now, when I started bringing up these issues that I just mentioned about 2.6 on stream, I had chatter saying that, well, 2.7 was also kind of a Galbrenna companion quest. And you know what? It kind of was. 70% of it was her aura farming. Not that I really minded her aura farming because she's really badass. But as I just mentioned, it turns out that my main problem isn't even the companion quest energy or the screen time. It's when you get intimate moments with a character that just don't feel earned. So I do wish that Galbrenna had actually been foreshadowed sooner. Like, you do get Augusta saying in her part of the 2.6 quest, what did you do to Angel? But I think something a bit more heavy-handed, like meeting Galbrenna briefly at some crossroads or something, would have been a great addition, in my opinion, instead of just showing her at the end. It would have made Galbrenna's appearance in 2.7 feel less abrupt, like, here's the banner character, she's in the story now. And instead it would have been more like, oh, we get to learn more about that hot character we met a while ago, and ooh, she's actually important to the story. Actually, also a side note, I got spoiled about the Galbrenna Angel reveal before I started playing 2.7 because one day I just googled Galbrenna to pull up a photo of her to advertise my stream, and then I saw out of the corner of my eye the Wuwa fandom wiki blurb saying, Galbrenna, a being once called Angel, or something like that, and I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, maybe it's because I like women who aura farm, or maybe Galbrenna didn't feel too fanservice-y towards her own Rover by contrast, but I kind of got similar energy from this as Augusta's quest in regards to the treatment of Galbrenna. I even like the fact that Ternodian and Grand Architect turned their attention towards Galbrenna instead of Rover, because I personally think that the key players of Septimont's and Rinascita's hero stories should be their own characters, not an outsider like Rover. And like, let Angel get her revenge for what happened to her as a child, of course, I'm all here for it. It did kind of drag a bit when Chimera was like narrating the trauma that Angel went through. As much as I loved Chimera's voice acting, there was a little like dragging there. And then that companion quest energy segment did feel like it was bloating the main quest arc, so honestly, it still had some issues personally for me. But, you know, it was kind of also used to introduce us to Paradise and even further illustrate the manipulation of Leviathan, Ternodian, more about Chimera. It could have just been told a bit more concisely, and I probably wouldn't have felt as much about that portion. But outside of that entire discourse, I just have to say that 2.7 was superbly cinematic. It was nice to see the entire cast finally come back, even though I feel like they should have been sprinkled in more throughout the Rinascita acts frequently. Like, just appear in the background, just come in with like a status report. Like, they were doing that throughout 2.7, but you know, 2.4 would have been nice to hear Brant's voice. Paradise was, again, visually stunning. The music was really cool. Lots of interesting biblical references, Dante's Inferno references. The music hit really hard at times. The cinematic scenes were just epic. And again, Cristoforo is very chef's kiss as a villain. I love that guy. I love to hate that guy. And it was also cool to see the Grand Architect, even though he spoke at like 0.25 speed. The entire thing was just really hype overall. It was super enjoyable. I loved that experience of playing through it. It felt like it was a great marathon. And I also played through the Segue Act with Qingyuan. Can I just say, it's kind of crazy to me that we get like a 2-hour companion quest energy act with Yuno, and then with Qingyuan his Segue Act is only 40 minutes. Like, where's my 2 hours of Qingyuan oro farming? It was great too. Like, there weren't any unnecessarily intimate moments between Rover and Qingyuan. Not that I would complain, because I'm so starved of men in Wuthering Waves. I'm only half joking. But he also dropped a bunch of info about Mingting, its government, its political atmosphere, and Jeshu Lin even made a cameo in there. Like, honestly, it was pretty packed for a segue in terms of lore relevance. And it was pretty concise in its execution, which I can appreciate. So, finally, let's move on to 2.8. In a nutshell, the issues I had with the Yuno Act resurfaced with Chisa. I can appreciate a good slice of life, and Honami was really pretty. Sumika was a really cool character, even if we barely met her. Chisa was also really pretty. You know, she's a cool character and I can see why she's popular. She has a tragic past that explicitly reveals discrimination against resonators in her hometown. And Namipon, despite being kind of a drag, was cute enough at times. But again, we meet someone and within 10 minutes, we're trusting each other with our lives. Now, I get that it's a dire situation and okay, in-game time passes differently, but like, she's trusting us with her deepest secrets, and it's just instantly soft and rosy and intimate and shiny. And my point is, it just didn't feel earned. It could have been a matter of hours or whatever, but it's like, I just met you. I'm not attached to you yet. And more than that, it started feeling like we had to learn all there is to know about a character within a single act or version, which just made it feel even more rushed and unearned. I keep going back to Frolova's act because at that point, again, we'd known her for a while already, so our feelings toward her were well developed, and the impact she has on us is also much more significant, as it should be. So to be fair, I think that the characters they choose to make each quest revolve around, they're written well enough to serve a substantial narrative purpose. They're interesting characters, they're cool, and they are able to tell us more about the world. They're able to give us lore drops, so we learn more about where they came from, and that's relevant to our experience as Rover. They're interesting characters. They move the plot along with their actions and their decisions, outside of any fan-servicey, overly intimate moments. But here are my thoughts summarized on that. 1. Wuwa doesn't have to keep writing these arcs to revolve around a single character. Writing them around a small group of 3, for example with Rover, Cartathea, and Cantarella, or around a bigger cast like in the 2.0 main quest, would help bring the focus back to the overarching main plot instead of being stuck or just anchored to a single character. And it can be difficult to write group dynamics or group dialogues instead of just like one-on-one and it's all like cute, intimate moments. But you know, having those group dialogues moving everything along, it helps it feel more dynamic. It helps introduce more personalities into it. It helps the tone of it a lot more. And if there's a part where we focus more on a single character, that's fine, but you always want to pull it back to the main plot and just not feel laser focused or boxed in on some individual's history like the entire time. The second thing is that, in my opinion, Wuwa doesn't need to keep oversharing the new character's history within the same act that we meet them. They don't need to resolve their personal plot and backstory within a single act or even a single version. Like, I get that it makes them way more pullable if we learn everything there is to know about them in a single banner cycle, but doesn't make for good storytelling? Maybe, but it will get very repetitive very fast. Cartathea, it felt a little bit more organic because you actually meet her at the end of 2.0, but then 2.2 is where you resolve her main character arc. You know, it's not like we meet her at the start of 2.2 and then we have to spend the entire time just like figuring her out or learning everything there is to know. No, there was actually an earlier introduction. Time passed and we're still left wondering about this girl, and then a little later we get to resolve her issues. So that, even just that change, it felt like the development between Rover and Cartathea was more organic versus the development between Rover and Chisa. And then more than that, I really hope that they change things up for the better moving forward with Lahairoi. I played through 3.0 Act 1. Spoiler warning, in case you haven't done it, just skip this part. And some might say it's a bit too early to give feedback on like the Lahairoi arc, or like to give any criticisms, because part 2 is still coming out. But you know what? As it came out and as I played it, I did have some thoughts similar to these. I really don't think we had to learn all about Linnea's story just in that one act alone. I think that she could have just helped us get to know Star Torch Academy as a student. She could have been our companion guide, introduced us to more characters, and still been this sort of mysterious troublemaker that gets involved in incidents, and we're still kind of trying to figure out why. You know, we can spend the entire time figuring out why. Someone can die and it turns into a whodunit, and honestly that's kind of fun, and then we're like, no, there's no way Linnea's at the center of this, right? And then it turns out she is, but we don't find that out right away. We find that out in the next act or in the next version. You know, just drop some hints that she's hiding stuff, but then don't bring about the reveal so soon. Let's wait till the next act or till the next version, and then the reveal becomes more impactful. Because at that point, she's been with us for longer, she's gotten to know us better, and she really knows that she can trust us. At least more than she could after a day of just meeting us, you know? I don't know, I just think that Wuwa can trust players to be in it for the long run, even just for the story, because they actually have some really good things going on here. So personally, I think it's okay to have some character arcs take longer to develop. Just not too long, I guess, but, you know, longer than a single act, longer than a single version. Not to mention bringing back old characters more frequently into the later acts, even if they're not on the banner. Now, I know that this video ended up being more about like overarching criticism that started showing itself more and more throughout the recent patches, more so than me critiquing the Rinascita story bar for bar. I know, but that's really just because I enjoyed the Rinascita binge through so much, and after each act I literally did talk about some of my thoughts in those streams. That some of them stayed in the highlights, some of them are in the VODs, and honestly I talk about it pretty frequently on stream too if you ever drop by. It just really felt like peak cinema as I played it. And you know, the dust did settle a bit, so I got to stew in my own thoughts and like try to consolidate them a bit more, be a bit more digestible. But after playing 3.0, it kind of solidified my criticisms of late 2.x, so that's why I kind of wanted to bring this video out now at this time, and why it also kind of covers my feelings about 3.0 kind of briefly. So I guess if there are any specific things you'd like to know my opinion on, you can drop them in the comments or come by my streams on twitch.tv/Sevy_plays. Again, I have my playthrough highlights on this channel and my playthrough VODs on the other channel, and at the ends of them you can hear some of my fresh playthrough thoughts. But that's all here and there. I hope you guys are having a happy new year. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the overarching Rinascita 2.x, the entire thing, or you can get specific, no worries. I would just love to hear about it, because I wasn't really, you know, on time with all the hype as it was happening. I'm on time now, but give me your thoughts down below. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel for more, and I will see you soon. Take care.